Remember Spider-Man? He's back! In pod form! Good lord, I've been doing these trailer breakdown speculation things since Homecoming. Because you asked for it, and because the rent is due, here are my thoughts on Spider-Man Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. Presented to you by The Gutter Space, the only pop culture news show hosted by a caveman displaced to the 21st century by a time travel mishap.
What I want to know is where's the caveman?
Stick around because we have a lot of rambling to do. Now that Peter Parker is superheroing without his billionaire mentor, he's going to need better deals when shopping. That's why he should have gone with today's sponsor, TEMU. TEMU's products are just as good as the high-end name-brand competitors, just cheaper. And given the state of things right now, I'll take it. All TEMU users are guaranteed to get a $0 gift on TEMU using my code. That's right, free. All you've got to do is go to the TEMU app and type this code into the search bar. Not at checkout, into the search bar right at the top here. And if you're already a TEMU user, you can get a $20 off coupon with my link in the description. Check out my haul from TEMU. I got this awesome replica of the marker from Dead Space, my all-time favorite video game. I got a light for my wife's action figure collection shelf so she can display her figures more clearly. Got a cute little bed for my cats. I really like this light switch cover because it matches the rest of my Spider-Man themed bathroom. Here's a shelf for my PS5 games because I was running out of room on my old one. Now my collection has more room to breathe and expand. And I got this great controller for PC gaming since the keyboard and mouse hurt my wrists. It even works with Nintendo Switch. If you're a new user, you can get all of this and more if you use my code KEA9257. My link in the description for a $20 coupon. You'd be surprised at the cool stuff you can find on there. I certainly was. Now back to the video. Flanked by John Bernthal's Punisher, Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, and an as-of-yet unrevealed character played by Stranger Things star Sadie Sink.
Who do you think knows the least about the Stranger Things universe?
It might be me.
I can't help but think the saga of MCU Spider-Man will one day be referred to by the fandom as Spider-Man Team Up. In the first trailer for the new film, we check back in on Spidey 4 years after the events of realizing his costume sucked after seeing the other guys and finally fixing it. And he's been doing okay for someone who no longer has a birth certificate, passport, state ID, education history, medical history, no address or pay slips from previous jobs. I know he got his GED to iron that out at least, but I imagine the identity erasing magic spell made the first few months of his new life really complicated and full of paperwork. It's kind of like being an immigrant in his own hometown. You know, Vulture's probably doing all that same shit in the Morbius universe since he didn't exist there too. How come he wasn't more upset that his daughter wasn't there? Like, he's trapped forever with Morbius. Peter's finally trying to work up the nerve to reveal his history to Ned and MJ, who have seemingly moved on and graduated college and moved to the big city. It's a bit sad that the college era of Peter's life was essentially skipped by these movies, presumably because circumstances prevented him from even attending a university here. We spent a whole trilogy on the last 2 years of him in high school, even going so far as to add a baked-in 5-year time skip to the universe so he could still be a senior in 2021 after being introduced as a junior in 2017. And now the college stuff is just like, f it, whatever, he's the same age as Insomniac Spider-Man now, let's just get on with it.
Good. Got it. Great. Good.
He could have met Harry Osborn, or his creepy-ass Professor Warren, clones, could have dated Deborah Whitman and then gaslit her into a minor psychosis. I don't know, there's just a lot more story content you could have farmed out of that than the 38 issues of high school he had out of nearly 1,000. Either way, Petey's trying to get back into the lives of his loved ones after so long, but he's got new villains on the rise, returning antagonists finally getting their due, and apparently his powers are mutating even further than ever before. He's waking up in strange places, experiencing odd changes to his body, and developing organic web shooters. This has left many fans speculating that this film will combine a few storylines about Peter Parker mutating in odd ways that will give him a permanent power boost. He had these huge, silver, chunky, and exposed web shooter props in all the set photos, and it seems they made them so obvious because it would help identify the difference when he gets the Tobey Maguire-style wrist ussy. Most of these storylines involve him mutating into a huge, disgusting spider monster first because that's metal as hell, but some reports speculate the film won't go in that direction for fear of alienating family viewers with a 6-armed giant tarantula person. Which I think is a big mistake because that concept is a really cool recurring theme throughout Spidey's history.
The Amazing Man Spider.
Harkening back to his B-movie sci-fi inspired origin story and body horror transformations most often seen in his villains. The cartoons did it without traumatizing anybody. Those still got their Happy Meal tie-ins. So let's talk a little bit about Spidey's history with random gross mutations to his powers, and how with or without the man-spider part, they seem to play a pretty big part in this movie's themes of transformation and rebirth. The most popular assumption I saw online about this meant they were adapting The Other, a comic storyline about Peter's powers developing further once he had become more open to it. But he has to die first, and get his eyeball eaten by a vampire from the multiverse. He goes into some kind of abstract arachnid afterlife where a spider-themed god tells him he can go back to the land of the living if he accepts his true nature as a hybrid of two species. Meanwhile, his body sheds his dead flesh, presumably a weird spider monster pops out, and then cocoons itself for a magic-based respawn as the new improved Spider-Man. But he didn't get organic web shooters from that storyline. Instead, he got night vision, his skin could be sticky anywhere, not just his hands and feet. That's really not that useful in most situations. And for some reason, nightmarish, horrific bone stingers that launched out of his wrists so he could violently stab people. That just really never came into play because he doesn't kill people, so it's just kind of a worthless superpower. The organic webbing came from a separate storyline a few years earlier in Paul Jenkins' Spectacular Spider-Man. This evil mutated telepath called the Spider Queen, who could control people and bugs, wanted to turn Peter into a giant spider and use him to birth a mutated half-arachnid master race to take over the world. It's as nutty as it sounds. But it's the only story in the comics to feature a prolonged mutation where Peter's powers go wonky and his body slowly turns into a man-spider. At the end of this, though, his body rejected the mutation and he snapped back to his former self. But with a few upgrades to his spider sense, and organic web shooters in his wrists so he can match the movie counterpart a little bit more closely. Movie synergy has always been a curse! The weirdest thing is that this wasn't even the first time he turned into a weird half Spider-Man. Before that, in 1998, haha, good year, in Amazing Spider-Man 437, Tom DeFalco spins us a tale of Spider-Man being infected by a mutagenic pollen from Plant Man, giving him a mostly cosmetic alteration. He's still totally aware and able to speak, even makes his usual dumb jokes, so he just beats Plant Man into submission until he gives him the antidote. That was easy. But the first Man-Spider incident in the comics happened in the obscure 1982 Marvel fanfare written by Chris Claremont, where Peter Parker is sent by the Daily Bugle to document an expedition to the Savage Land. Easily the most irresponsible and dangerous assignment Jonah has ever put him on. This wasn't even the first time either. One time Magneto used a machine that mutated locals from the Savage Land to give them superpowers. Those same freaks captured Spider-Man and turned the machine into a de-evolution device to turn him into a man-spider. This is also the first time they call it that as well. Angel from the X-Men was there too, and he's turned into a hilarious-looking chicken man. A mutant pterodactyl man named Sauron then absorbed all of the offending genetic mutation out of him to spare him this obscene fate. You know, I mean, like, this stuff makes a lot more sense when you read it, but when I'm just giving you the cliff notes, it sounds so dumb. I promise these are actually kind of cool to read. But of course, none of these storylines will be directly adapted in this film. The best we'll get is more of a passing resemblance to them at best. This is Spider-Man adaptations, kids, which means the comics before 2010 don't exist, and the only source material you need to worry about is the 90s cartoon. Throughout Season 2 of Spider-Man the Animated Series, Peter's powers mutate further on their own without any outside influence. First, he becomes a six-armed Spider-Man at the halfway point, but later he turns into a six-armed man-spider that terrorizes the city. That is, until the Punisher, I see where I'm going with this, hunts him down with the help of the heroic Kraven the Hunter, because in that show, Kraven's a good guy. And they cure him of his bestial form. I think it's no coincidence that they're doing Peter's powers switching up on him, and the Punisher is here for this movie too. They're just doing the 90s cartoon episodes as a movie. Though the role of the character that tells Peter he's changing for the worse, and the one who creates his cure, will go to Bruce Banner instead of Dr. Kurt Connors. They kinda screwed themselves out of using most of Spidey's main villains by having him already meet multiverse variants of them in the last movie. Anytime he meets these characters as civilians from now on, he'll know they're destined to turn into those villains he already saw, or he'll already know how to beat them. So they're probably going to avoid doing any of those for Tom's Spidey tenure and just stick to adapting lesser-known bad guys or replacing them with equivalent characters. Bruce Banner and the Lizard are already extremely similar and sort of interchangeable in some places, and using one in place of the other actually happened already once in the Secret Wars arc of the cartoon, where John Semper Jr. couldn't get the rights to use the Hulk in time and just had, Smart Lizard instead of Smart Hulk. I really think Semper must have read that Marvel fanfare issue at one point earlier in his life, thought the Man-Spider design looked cool, and then despite it being such an obscure, random pull, he devoted an entire season of the cartoon to it when he became showrunner of his own Spider-Man 12 years later. And you know, I kind of respect that. Spidey becoming a huge mutated monster is fun and fits the character, and he's done it a ton of times. It'd be a huge wasted opportunity not to do it in this film. It's one of the few ideas that none of the live-action movies have already touched on before, but it's a big, memorable part of the character's history that's cropped up several times. I think if they just did it briefly or designed it the right way, it could work without terrifying the children too bad. I mean, shit, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 killed a bunch of cute woodland creatures and then ripped a guy's face off and is full of sex jokes. That didn't hurt their box office any. The Venom movies are full of monsters, and those are PG-13 all the way through that trilogy. You really aren't creative enough to make a spider monster without it being some kind of horrible R-rated nightmare fuel. I say you're not trying hard enough if that's the case. But either way, they're still clearly using Season 2 of the cartoon for some of the movie's basis, and that gives me hope that the reports are wrong. The interesting twist on them taking cues from this storyline from the animated series is that there's also apparently ninjas? The Hand are fighting Spidey through the film's marketing. That's a group he usually doesn't tussle with unless his friend Daredevil is involved. And let's be honest, Daredevil is gonna be in this movie. I think they're currently hiding his presence because it would spoil the current season of his TV show. I mean, heck, even the first trailer already spoiled it by showing that Wilson Fisk is going to be mayor much longer, and New York's opinion of Spider-Man will turn around really quickly. Much like No Way Home, the marketing for Brand New Day is very cagey with details, but there are leaks everywhere for those who are terminally online in comic book spaces. So if you'll indulge me, here's a segment where I'm going to talk about potential spoilers, skip to this time code to avoid, if you want to go in cold, and completely sidestep spoilers for Daredevil Season 5. I mean, I know it's Season 2, but it's Season 5, shut up. Matt Murdock's ass is going to jail based on this photo posted on Instagram by Luke Cage actor Mike Coulter. He really should have thought that one through. And yeah, Matt Murdock deserves to go to jail after becoming Marvel's first canon foot freak.
What's wrong with feet?
So whatever happens in this season of Daredevil will land him in the Slammer, which is a comic storyline. It'll oust Fisk from political power and leave the Hand busting into prison to fight him and Spider-Man, I guess? There are also leaks from toys like the Lego sets showing that Tombstone will be a major threat, with Scorpion and maybe Tarantula and Boomerang as his henchmen. Unless the Lego set is just including them because they were in the movie and they're really just going to only be in that montage. Maybe Tombstone is capitalizing on the power vacuum in the criminal underworld of New York once Kingpin is out of commission. Also, the Hulk will show up. Not just Banner but Green, but like actual Hulk. How all of this will form a coherent narrative is kind of hard to grasp currently. Seems like the movie has a lot going on and runs the risk of being a bit overstuffed. Okay, spoiler stuff over now. I do like the antagonistic dynamic we're seeing between Spidey and the Punisher. I've dreamed of these two getting to share a screen for a decade now. John Bernthal and Tom Holland actually helped each other film their audition tapes to get both of these roles, and they're apparently friends behind the scenes. So it's cool to see that crossover a decade in the making finally coming to fruition. People forget that the Punisher's entire existence started as a Spider-Man villain, so he's actually right at home here. And it's good that Peter and him are clearly butting heads over how to deal with criminals. None of that Mr. Castle shit. He actually kicks him out of a moving vehicle with his super strength and then tells him to go away. That's how Spidey needs to react to some of these other super freaks. Not constantly licking their iron boots. He needs to react to other superheroes with modest disrespect and indifference at best, and outright annoyance and resentment at worst. He kinda hates Wolverine. I'm a big Punisher fan, but I only like MCU Punisher as a supporting character, because that's when he's written the most like the actual Punisher. In his solo show, Frank Castle's a wishy-washy, non-committal bitch that does the same generic character arc over and over of, every time I try to get out, they keep pulling me back in! I'm just really sick of it because it's played out and it's not a great conflict to do over and over with a character that's supposed to be that driven and obsessive. No disrespect to John Bernthal, though. I mean, I like him. He's good casting. It's just that MCU Punisher sucks when he's by himself. What the hell is the hair and makeup department doing to my man Frank? What is this, Jersey Shore Punisher? I cannot imagine this unstoppable engine of human violence and revenge taking the time to perfectly trim his beard and gel up his hair like this in the morning. Gotta make sure I look good before I go out shooting people. Meanwhile, back over in Brand New Day, Spidey's costume looks incredible. This is by far my favorite Spider-Man movie suit that we've ever had, and I dread the day they take it away and replace it with something a little bit worse to make more merchandise. Thank goodness they're letting it be a real piece of clothing with fabric instead of him being a Roger Rabbit CGI monster that looks fake in every shot. It's a little sad that Spidey has the best MCU costume ever and it's made of actual good materials, and every other character is wearing tactical SWAT armor gear that looks vaguely like their comic counterparts as like an Easter egg. Tarantula looks like such a dumb asshole. Why is Scorpion wearing only half of his costume? He gets the tail and that's it? Yeah, well, he's got a helmet on the action figure. Maybe it'll be fine. Wonder if he saw Vulture disappear to the Morbius universe that day? Do you think he witnessed that and it changed him forever? Do you think he found God after his cellmate dematerialized in front of him to be banished to the Morbius world forever? Maybe he was in the bathroom and he missed it. A couple of shots from the trailer are that thing that I hate when it's recreating a comic panel or cover but completely divorced from the original context of the moment. But it's not so bad here because I know these won't be a huge deal to the movie. I think maybe the amount of villains could be tempered by a lot of these just being relegated to just a quick montage in the opening sequence to catch us up on the last 4 years. We don't need to see him fight Boomerang and Tarantula at length. All we need to know is that since the last time we saw him, some more traditional and grounded Spidey storylines have happened, or at least events very similar to them to lead to these images happening. There's still the matter of Sadie Sink, and people think that she might be playing Jean Grey so they can work this into a backdoor pilot for the X-Men reboot. To that I say, I think she's a little on the young side for that, so they must be doing like First Class era OG5 X-Men. And I think it's going to be kind of clunky to have her in here unless her role is minor. There are a lot of scenes in the trailer that evoke the Spider-Man PS4 game with him chasing down a huge military vehicle. Then he finds out it's being driven by a mind-controlled civilian. People are jumping to the conclusion that this means Jean Grey is there and using her powers to force people to do evil stuff, which that feels a little weird. She only abuses her powers when she wants to out people for being gay, not a prison break. This all does evoke some imagery of Mr. Negative, and I could see him coming up soon if they want to keep Spidey on the street level for the foreseeable future. Maybe Tombstone is the big bad, and he's just using Jean Grey's powers for nefarious ends by blackmailing or manipulating her or something. And then Peter's like, hey, Dick, don't do that. She's like, wow, thanks, Spider-Man, you saved me, I'm gonna go join the X-Men now. And then the whole thing will be weirdly similar to that Iron Man Armored Adventures episode that I like. I don't know, I think I'm just hoping that the Jean Grey thing is all wild fan speculation alone based on hair color, and maybe she's someone else more attached to Spider-Man mythos. Maybe she's Julia Carpenter, that's a redhead. It would be weird if she was Gwen Stacy, because that would be the third time in a row they cast a redhead as Gwen Stacy wearing a blonde wig. Oh god, what if she's Screwball? That's a redhead. My biggest takeaway so far is that it looks like under new direction, Spider-Man's character is acting a little bit more how I'd like him to. The Home trilogy went out of their way to surf Dracula a lot of Peter's basic personality traits across 3 movies, and it was exhausting to watch in real time. But now he's got a little bit more of an attitude and is being more independent, which I like to see. I'm excited to see the Punisher and Hulk interacting with Spidey, even if it's going to be kind of hectic to have them both in there. I know my sense of humor sounds really pessimistic and cynical, but I am genuinely excited to watch this one, and that's just how I talk. I'm pretty tired of the MCU as a whole, but I'll stick around for the characters I have a personal connection to as a fan of their comics. Which mirrors how I don't buy every comic Marvel publishes, I just pick out the ones that look interesting. This is the same deal. Spider-Queen, Neogenic Nightmare, and The Other are 3 cool storylines that all kind of have the same theme of rebirth and metamorphosis. I still think trying to do some kind of mashup of them could potentially make for a story that's better than the sum of its parts, and does the idea better than all of them individually, so I'm optimistic to see how they could handle the new stage of Spidey's life cycle. But I do worry that the movie might be getting a little crowded with so many other superheroes and villains butting in and out. And please God, don't put Screwball in the movie.